feeling very content with just take bases for now, not going for any real aggressive actions. Surprised me a little bit. I thought with the heavy Wraith count we might be seeing some aggressive actions to try to go for some base hunting. Now we'll look at Fantasy's first person view. Doesn't know about the 12 o'clock position at all. So he's in the blind when it comes to that. Is picking up the 6 o'clock for himself though, so he is going to be on 5 bases. Soon enough, going to see whether it transitions towards the inside 4 o'clock base. There is an additional base there. Going to have to push out a little bit with his ground forces, as he's doing right now. SCV's leading the charge. His own Wraiths and Valkyries coming into play. Scan going to come off, get some shots on that, but meanwhile his own Wraith's going to get shot to pieces by Goliaths, trying to shoot back at those Wraiths and trying to keep his ground forces in there, but it does seem like he took some heavy losses. Only tanks on the ground right now. Has the Valkyrie and a few Wraiths in there, but has to be very careful. He wants to try. Doesn't want to fly straight into some fire. Has some force on the left side also coming in. But Flash with a huge number of reinforcements on the way. Scan come off, also going to spot those Wraiths for Flash. Going to try to get a few shots out with his Goliaths on the ground. Way too risky. So Flash can pretty much trust in his Goliaths to fight back these Wraiths, and the Valkyries kind of just flying around uselessly, not really engaging the Wraiths that Flash has. But Flash, meanwhile, safely picking up the 12. Might even expand on that base. Going to see whether he's going to try to go for the natural expansion at that 1 o'clock, or whether he's going to try to expand towards the secondary, or try to take the base beyond the X, which is a little bit easier to defend as long as he can get an SV in there at the upper left-hand position. And Flashman just going to hold this north side of the map, and he also seems to have a nice hold on the west side. So he's definitely being allowing Fantasy to be the aggressor, but unfortunately in this case it's really not the best idea for Fantasy to be the aggressor. He has to just continue expanding as he's doing. Being an aggressor not really helping him out, because he's kind of being forced to walk into engagement he doesn't want to. Going to be able to take one tank out there without taking any losses, but this just one tank at this point, not really helping out too much. This entire time, Flash has had a superior factory count, has a superior tank count, and I still only see... Oh, there we go. I was like, where the hell are Fantasy's factories? He actually has those outside his natural expansion, just so he can reinforce quicker. It leaves them in a little bit more vulnerable position, but overall I think he should be able to defend if it comes down to it. Flash not really funneling any forces anywhere else than to the north. And Fantasy, meanwhile, has also, I think, actually gotten a wave of that 6 o'clock position without getting spotted at all. So in that way, he's pretty good. Flash sticking on 4, going to be getting his 5th base up at that natural expansion at the 12. And while Fantasy's still on his own 5 bases, so it's 5-5 bases, although Fantasy has taken a few more military losses. Wraiths flying around, gonna spot that 2 o'clock. Getting inside the main, there is a dropship being hidden there at the low right-hand position. 3 dropships, they're very much in the open. They might get taken down if Fantasy's not careful. Oh man, the Wraiths going straight for the dropships. No anti-air defenses. Wraiths coming way too late for Fantasy. He's going to lose every single one of his dropships. 2 Starports producing dropships, and that was a big loss right there. Flash has 4 dropships of his own. Fantasy's entire fleet getting taken down. Looks like Flash in a very good position. Now Fantasy's going to be forced to get a move on. If he wants to do something, he has to go for an aggressive action on the ground. Try to hold Flash back at this point, but I just don't think he has the tank number to do that. Got to try to go for an engagement. Flash with the reinforcements from the dropships on the right time. Wraith's trying to engage, but they're just being shot at with Karam boosters. And Fantasy can just not threaten that position. Flash will be able to pick up that inside 9 o'clock without any trouble or any threat from Fantasy whatsoever, and just continue producing those dropships, knowing that he's going to have as long as he keeps production up, he's going to have a much larger fleet than his opponent at all times, and that is really not a good position to be in for Fantasy at this point. Gonna be seeing a drop, only 3 dropships, but that's going to be enough. That's going to be a lot of damage. That's going to be a float, maybe even a command center death. With those Goliaths in there, even the command center floats up, it's going to get taken down. And Fantasy has, meanwhile, replenished some of his dropships. Has 4 dropships in there. Is going to try to go and try to save the command center. I think at this point it's a little bit too late. Might go for some aggressive action, but Flash, being Flash, set up a very nice defensive grid across the entire north side of the map. With every tank in there, has a bunch of turrets to help himself defend. Meanwhile, now it looks like Fantasy going to try to go for the low left-hand position, the secondary, but a lot of turrets in there. And Fantasy does back off, because the position's very risky, and Flash playing very much his own style. Gonna drop yet again at the 9 o'clock, at the 3 o'clock, I'm sorry, secondary. Bunch of dropships. That's another command center that's gonna go down, and Flash utilizing some nice maneuverability, some nice nice maneuvers to really just crush Fantasy here. He's not looking in a very good position, losing bases that he really can't afford to lose. Looks like he's thinking of going for a counterattack. Needs to get some damage done, but he's in such a bad position. Flash already with his own dropships at the ready. Fantasy going to drop right inside of Flash's main. But is this going to be enough? Going to start sieging all of his tanks down. And at the very least, going to be engaged those tanks on the low ground. But SCV's going to come off the line to engage the tanks up close. And Flash not going to continue funneling in. And Fantasy actually going to get some of his own wraiths to try to fight back the possible dropships. We're going to see whether Fantasy can actually manage to do something with this. Flash is going to start dropping on top of it. But meanwhile, he might lose a lot of his production. Meanwhile, he's taken out already 2 bases of Fantasy's. Fantasy has his own dropships coming to play. We're going to see whether it drops anything else on top of that. Those factories, however, are a whoa, huge drop from Fantasy. And unfortunately for Flash, that's his entire troop production. If that goes down, he's going to be in trouble. He's already being forced to rebuild a bunch of factories at the north side. He's been going to lose his entire main. Looks like that command center might not be that important factor right now, but losing all those production buildings is important. He's going to take him a while before he can start producing tanks at the rate he was earlier. So Fantasy with a nice job finding an opening inside of Flash's main, going to do a lot of damage. But is he going to be able to survive himself, because he's going to now face a drop into his main? Is he going to have enough? He has no factories in his main, and it looks like Flash is actually going to back off. Has meanwhile seriously crippled Fantasy's economy. Well, Fantasy has seriously crippled Flash's production, so this is very interesting indeed. Only 2 star puts in there, no factories inside the main left, and still a lot of those forces. So we might be seeing Fantasy actually transition down actually down the ramp into the natural expansion or somewhere else. Going to be counter dropping here at the Tolkok position. Fantasy going to come out far behind, going to lose some of his dropships in the mix. Ouch. Only 1 dropship staying alive. Desperately trying to rebuild the base there at the 3 o'clock position, but still not economy-wise very good position. Is forcing a float at the Natural Expo and just going to go around and kill all the supply he can find. So just with that big drop, he's staying in this game, miraculous as it is. Flash rebuilding armories and supply depots and factories like crazy at the north side, but Fantasy's still staying in this, doing some ground maneuverability as well, but picking off all the supply depots and everything. You can see it looks like he is going to transition towards the lower left-hand secondary, so at the very least denying some economy and doing some damage to Flash as well. Although Flash has other lifelines all across. Meanwhile, also going to expand towards the north, towards the 12 o'clock secondary, that 11:30 base. And yeah, it's going to take Flash a few hits on those eggs before he can actually get through. Just going to siege across. I'm not sure if he has a Goliath, or else he would have been able to just kill the Arbiter and take out those eggs. Meanwhile, going to face another drop on his 3 o'clock. That's going to get taken out, cancelled before it can be rebuilt. So Flash, they're really trying to keep Fantasy crippled. Fantasy has a base at the inside. I think, yeah, it has a mining base at the inside. 4 o'clock, so a lot of that is just mining stuff. Wraith coming into a couple of Wraiths, or 1 Wraith, I think 2 Wraiths coming into play, trying to pick out those dropships, but they finally go down. So both players, at this point, for the most part, losing their Wraith fleets. Flash not doing too much mining at the left-hand secondary, not much mining at his natural either, but he is trying to put down bases at every possible location. Otherwise, at that upper left-hand new base beyond the eggs, it's fairly safe. Meanwhile, still holding the ramp, so not feeling too threatened there. Not going to be able to hold it forever, but I think Flash has pretty much completely given up on that. Had to rebuild his entire production, and really, that one single attack from Fantasy has held him in this entire game. If that attack had failed, it would have been a GG already. So truly miraculous maneuver there from for Fantasy. Absolutely beautiful. And just forcing Flash to rebuild, put up a completely new main at the 12 o'clock position, which ironically enough is a main position. Just forcing Flash to do that was a pretty big move. Keeping him in this game, you can see still has a sizable force on the ground, still has his Valkyrie in the air, just killing an Arbiter, so he can move towards the 12 o'clock position, take it back, as Flash has taken it from him. Flash, meanwhile, at this 12 o'clock secondary 11:30 base, putting on turrets so he can try to make sure that no new drops come at him, and Fantasy, meanwhile, has moved out and left that old left hand alone. Maybe just didn't have the force to take out the Arbiter. I'm not surprised kind of didn't just go in for the finishing blow. Fantasy, Flash still though has the advantage. Okay, never mind. I thought Flash had the more dropships out there, but Fantasy meanwhile has rebuilt his own dropship fleet, so it seems like they're kind of even numbers in dropships at this point. And this is a very exciting TVT, guys. Long-winded, I would not call this long-winded. It looks like Fantasy's just slowly trying to put some pressure on this 12 o'clock base. Flash is a little bit... Ooh, that was a big shot on those dropship. Fantasy going to get a drop inside the main. Not too huge. And Flash has reinforcements coming in, so these guys not really going to accomplish much. Yeah, not the best of drops. I'm not even sure if he scanned ahead of it. So would have actually been able to do a lot more if he had scanned ahead of that new base of his. But still, trying to continue putting on aggressive maneuvers. Let's see. Base-wise, Fantasy... Let's see. Looks like he still has some resources left in his main front. Can see in the minimap. That's kind of funky. But for the most part, his mining bases are the 6 o'clock and the inside 4. And that's not really the strongest economy. Flash has mining bases all over the place. Not all of them are fully saturated, but he still has a lot of that. He's moving out. Now going to start clearing up some of these tanks in the low ground. Despite this nice maneuver, absolutely beautiful way from Fantasy to stay in this game. He just doesn't have the economy to continue fighting back. He needs additional bases, but it just doesn't seem like he has the troops, the forces to do that. And looks like just the longer the game goes on, Fantasy still has a nice hold on it. Has that 12 o'clock main mining, the natural mining, the 11:30 getting saturated. Still has a little bit of mining at the low left in position. Has the 2 o'clock mining. Has the upper left hand getting back up. And you see where I'm going with this. Too many bases. And Fantasy just cannot. Despite that big blow from him was, in the end, just one big delay, which unfortunately now is not going to save him in this game. He unfortunately just cannot do too much. He's trying to keep his defenses up, but now he's going to be forced. His inside 4 o'clock position now, one of his biggest and most important lifelines, going to get attacked. Flash should have some dropships also coming in. Fantasy trying to desperately reinforce, has his factories close by, and also if those goes down, that's a big blow. But Flash, yeah, there you go. Fantasy GG's, and Flash goes 2-0 in this series. So despite some nice moves from Fantasy to stay in the game, as I've already repeated myself, I think, by saying this like 5 times at this point, some nice maneuvers, still not enough. And Flash takes a commanding lead, but as we saw in the OSL final last season, a 2-0 commanding lead, even by Flash, is not impossible to break. So we're going to see what happens, guys. GG, Ranching Out, assisting. Hope you enjoyed. And in the event of a 3-0, I promise I'll put up anti-spoilers this time. I totally forgot that for the quarterfinals. Sorry about that. Oops.